everyone, I'm Leslie from Monday Off, and today I will tell you a little bit about our case study that is about how Like a Pizza, one of our published games, reached 50 million downloads within 2 months. Our agenda today will be a short introduction to Monday Off as a studio. We will then talk about ideation and how we made Like a Pizza. What steps did we take? How did we ideate it? And what were the results, or how did it influence game data and CPI? After that, we will talk a little bit about the difficulties our developers faced while making the game, which I'm sure some of you might be able to relate to. And then we will just look at the results, and at the end, I will tell you a little bit about future Monday Off events. So I hope you will enjoy this speech today and look forward to it. Let's get started. Monday Off is the first and number one hyper-casual publisher and studio in South Korea. We have achieved over 100 million downloads in 2022, and some of our hits, I'm sure maybe you've heard of them, Like a Pizza, Gun Hit Run, and our new hit Mining Master, are some of our most successful games. So we think that they have quite original concepts, and we always try to, find something new and innovate the market. This is a little timeline of our studio. As you can see, we started out back in 2018 and had our first hits in 2019, but we continued to publish more and more games over the time, and that's how we basically grew into the studio/publisher that we are today. One of the questions that we ask ourselves is always, what makes your game different? We want to show that our games are original, and we think they are quite innovative in the sense that we try to make something new into maybe already existing trends, or make an entirely new one. And we think that's one of the very important things, because these days in the market, just pushing out games is one option that you could take, but the games have to be of higher quality, because it's been a few years for hyper casual, so we want to make our games stand out as much as possible. Starting off, I will give you a short introduction to our game Like a Pizza. It is an idle arcade game in which you're the manager of a pizza restaurant, and your job is to keep expanding your pizza shop. You unlock areas of your restaurant and serve customers to keep earning money, but some areas are a bit more difficult to unlock, which motivates the player to, keep looking forward to new content. The game is quite high-paced, so it keeps the players busy and engaged for a long time, and this is one of the things that make it quite special. In 2022, the hyper-casual market was very diverse. We've had several trends come and go, but nothing was as impactful as idle games. And in the third quarter of the year, we were aware of the very successful idle games topping the charts and, staying up there for quite a long time, such as Office Fever or My Mini Marts. And we obviously did not want to miss out on this opportunity, and our studio teams looked for ideas and themes that would go along well with the idle genre. And then they came up with the idea pizza, a food that probably everyone loves, or at least most of the people, and factory, because that theme has already been proven as successful. So we combined factory and pizza, and like that, Like a Pizza was born. When we thought about making pizzas, we referred to different materials we could find online, and the pizza producing process looked very interesting, and we thought this would definitely be a good idea to make into a game. So we decided to use pizza, but in the end we ended up with more of a serving restaurant type of game rather than just a factory game. So yeah, please keep that in mind. So when we first started working on the prototype, we decided on the core gameplay, carrying and moving things around, in our case pizza. And now that we had the basics figured out, the studio had to think about upgrades and NPCs that would suit the theme of the game. Serving pizza to customers, productivity upgrades, and money-making NPCs ended up as the features of choice that would serve our surrounding of a pizza restaurant. And after running a few smaller tests, we decided to move on to soft launching the game, testing its metrics, and see what it could do. And the first iteration had a CPI of over $1, 26% D1 retention, and a playtime of around 7 minutes. Of course, this kind of data would most likely put any potential game on the chopping block, but instead we decided to invest a little more time into another iteration because we really believed in the game's potential and wanted to see what we could do to improve this game. The goal of our next iteration would be a CPI of under $1, a D1 retention of over 30%, and a playtime of over 10 minutes. For this next iteration, we focused on UX improvement, adding more content, or at least hint at new content to make players curious and, let them stay on the game and hopefully waiting for no update. To get a little more into detail when it comes to the user-friendly UX, we noticed that our game was still lacking in this department, especially in the first initial stages of the game. So we added arrows and cutscenes to create a short tutorial and smoother gameplay flow. This would help the user understand the gameplay better and guide them naturally to the next step. A good tutorial to onboard players is crucial when it comes to playtime and retention, and a necessity for all idle arcade games. You do not want to lose the player's attention or make them confused in the first few minutes of the game, because that will end up in them leaving. So preventing that is a very good idea. The next problem we had to solve was, how do we make users feel excited and curious about the upcoming content? How do we make sure players will continue to return to the game and have the feeling of working towards something? We could see that in the retention and playtime that our players were having maybe a short amount of fun, but in general there was not a lot of content to look forward to. So one of our main attempts at this time was adding dummy space to the map. By displaying unlock, we want to show players that they will be able to unlock something very soon as long as they keep playing and, make them a little curious. After that, we decided to run another test to check whether the iteration turned out to be successful and the game data improved. The results came out at a CPI of $1, a retention of 31%, and a playtime of 8.9 minutes, showing a 5% increase in retention and 1.5 minutes increase in playtime. With this data, we came to the conclusion that we should now focus on the users' reviews to improve the gameplay and definitely work on improving the CPI. In preparation for iteration 3, we started going through the user reviews to find bugs or things in game that would impact the user experience. We wanted to see what our players were thinking about the game and fix those things to hopefully improve the game and make them stay. One thing was mentioned quite often, and it was the dummy space. People really did not like having expectations of fun gameplay only to then get disappointed by the fact that the content does not yet exist. And to improve the user experience, we decided to remove the locked spaces, and instead set up unlockable areas to appear one after one, and those would be things that were already in the game. No more, luring people in and making them curious. Then, of course, the always impossible to answer question was, how do we improve the game's CPI? Even if the game data would turn out to be, even better with this iteration, a CPI of $1 would make it incredibly difficult to turn a profit. So we decided to run A/B tests on different design concepts, background colors, and color combinations of the objects in the game. But after running and testing iteration 3, we were aware that the update didn't necessarily improve the game's overall quality. While the CPI decreased to a whopping 89 cents, the D1 retention went up to 24%, and the session time also decreased by over a minute to 7.9 minutes. For this reason, we decided to put back the dummy space and put some more exciting late game contents, such as pizza delivery that will be unlocked at the very end of the game, closer toward the first few minutes of gameplay. This would hopefully improve the user experience and the game data, and keep players, interacted with and excited while they're playing the game. And to further reduce the CPI, we kept on optimizing the game and our creatives based on the data of the continuous A/B testing. For iteration 4, one of the most impactful changes that we made was the aforementioned delivery system that was originally supposed to be like game content, added to the early stage of the game. And we noticed that a lot of times idle games seem to be dragging out fun content for too long and leaving even more exciting things for the end. And this can prove to be very dangerous because the player doesn't feel enough excitement in the game or in the first 10 minutes of the game, and ends up quitting before the fun has even begun. So instead, we wanted to let them accomplish something early on so they could then focus on unlocking more fun elements such as this one. Directly connected to the changes mentioned before, we also improved the tutorial by adding more cutscenes and arrows so the player will understand every part of the game and does not get lost or confused and then ends up quitting the game. Improving the UX really is one of the most important things when it comes to good game data. And to check whether your game's intro is good and easy to follow, you could let friends or family play your game. This way you can usually get a direct feedback from people who might not play these games, or even if they're playing them, will have a good eye for whether the tutorial is bad or not. And if it's people who usually do not play hyper casual games and they cannot follow the game, then you might have a case of a bad tutorial that will negatively influence your game data. After running iteration 4, we finally arrived at a decent game data result with a D1 retention of 39%, a playtime of 10.2 minutes, and a CPI of 78 cents. For now, we could focus on finishing the final optimization and polishing the game, improving the CPI more, and then move on to scale up. Here are some of the examples you can look at to see what changes were made on like a pizza until it became the final product that it is now. And see some of the A/B testing that we did on the characters, backgrounds, colors, and scenarios. Developing a game is not easy. There are many difficulties and most ideas get scrapped. Maybe we're all facing similar issues when it comes to hyper casual and idle games, and our developers let us know what was the most difficult for them during the internal development process. One of the most difficult tasks was improving the AI NPCs that are supposed to support you and increase productivity while you're playing. It was important that the NPCs won't get stuck walking into objects, walls, or not move to the correct spots on the map. They have to move naturally and look like actually human control characters rather than static robots, and to make this process possible in a technical way was one of the biggest issues that we faced. Second was the creation of assets and objects that look like idle but are not a carbon copy of already existing games, and add something fresh and new to the design. We wanted players to recognize the game is an idle game, but also make it stand out. So we did not want to use a lot of third-party, assets, or basically make the game ourselves. And example here would be the jelly people in their simple uniforms that make them, distinguishable by their uniform color. And to make the user experience even more enjoyable, we had to add small details to the game so it will feel more natural and dynamic. And we paid a lot of attention to, for example, the stacking of the pizza boxes to make it look as satisfying as possible. And the tower would lean to the side as you move around, the taller it grows. All of these kind of small details would make your game look more interesting, and although it's just a small detail, it might have a really big impact in making your game feel interesting and lively. Of course, reviewing user feedback to improve your game is a given, but finding the best options to actually fix the issues is not always easy. It's definitely not the best, as we have seen in our case, to blindly follow user reviews and do as they would suggest for your game. People may complain about ads or areas unable to unlock, but removing those factors doesn't necessarily result in a better game data. So we learned that it is important to experiment to find the right balance between the focus on monetization, game data, and user experience. Summing up, what our developers really felt during the development of Like a Pizza is that idle games give a lot more creative freedom in comparison with other hyper-casual genres. You can add diverse content to your game without confusing the player, but of course only if it is implemented right. If the tutorial and rules are not self-explanatory, you might lose a lot of players that end up feeling confused and just quit. So the best way to set up a good introduction to the game is focusing on the core rules of the gameplay and then adding visual helpers that would aid the player at the beginning of their journey. Of course, you shouldn't introduce too many things at once, or use a lot of text to teach the player what to do. But the introduction to your game really will decide your playtime and retention, and paying attention to the UX could greatly improve your game data. Here you can take a look at the download numbers over the span of 2 months from release and scale up to 2 months after, and the game managed to get over 15 million downloads and ended up in the top 10 of the overall game charts of over 50 countries. So we believe that experimenting with your games is or can be worth it. Like a Pizza is just one example of our publishing with flexible KPIs. And probably 99% of cases, a game like a Pizza with a CPI of over $1 in the beginning would have been killed, but with enough attention and the will to improve, you can get astounding results just like we did in this situation. So if your game shows potential, we want to support you on the way to improvement and get the most out of your idea. I have one more surprise for you guys. Maybe some of you have participated on or know about this event already, but our next MondayOFF party is starting soon. Registration open on February 20th, so be ready and look forward to the event. If you take a closer look at the event timeline, you can see that our registrations open on February 20th and the submissions close on March 24th. So you have almost a month time of submitting your games to the dashboard. All you need is 4 creatives, and you can submit as many games as many times as you want. You can also freely iterate on your game or get feedback from the publishing managers during this time to improve your game and hopefully be able to snatch one of the prizes or publish based on flexible KPIs. We will hold the closing ceremony on April 10th, and we hope that you're gonna look forward to this. Our MondayOFF party focuses on publishing with flexible KPIs. So we use a points table to measure your game's potential. It is very simple, and you can look at how many points you get in each category. To be eligible, you need to reach at least the minimum for each category, depending on whether it's hyper casual or idle arcade. And then we will also look at your game and see if it is worth developing further, and we hope that we can find a lot of games that we can work on and hopefully publish during this time. Depending on how many points you reach during the test period, we could offer you a publishing contract, and then you would be eligible to receive an MG in the worth of up to $50,000. So try to submit as many games as possible, iterate on your game, get feedback, try to do your best in this competition, and you might get lucky. There are not just MG prizes based on the points of your game, but also many other bonus prizes you can win, such as MondayOFF Choice or Best Design, Most Original Game Idea. We want to make this event fun for you guys and let go and experiment with your hyper casual ideas. Don't miss out on this chance to publish with flexible KPIs, and visit the MondayOFF dashboards as soon as it's ready for submission. We hope that you're looking forward to this event and that you will have a fun experience with it too. If you want to stay in touch with MondayOFF and learn more about educational programs, game jams, and competitions that we offer, follow our LinkedIn page and join our Discord. On Discord, you can talk directly to publishing managers and get advice from our community if you want to discuss certain topics or want to get feedback on your games. We hope to be seeing you there soon. I want to thank all of you guys for listening today and hope you had a good time. It's always nice to meet you through HEC, so if you have any questions, just ask away and we will do our best to answer them. Thanks once more for listening, and have a great day and remaining time at HEC. Bye bye.